I realized that this is kind of a, you know, very nice conference. We just had beautiful music. So I think I need to express myself through that and continue a bit with that as part of my introduction. And let me see, probably you can see my screen, right? And somehow you guys have disappeared from my screen, so I need to play around a bit with that. Sorry for that. I'm trying to see everyone and everybody everywhere. Good. So I would start with a little bit of a song because I'm Hungarian and we are now in Turkey. And I think we have much more common than some of us might think. So just as a start, just listen. And I'm not even sure this is going through, so just optimize sharing for full video. Yes, so shout if you don't hear it.
Töröknév dalokon a Zeneakadémia berkein.
Stop it. Okay, so I hope you could hear a little something out of this. Baris, nod me if you heard.
Of course.
Very good, very good. So Majda Maria is singing Turkish songs as well as Hungarian songs. And
a very sensitive start, my friend.
Because I love you and I love testing and I love to be here. So it would have been so nice to be in Turkey and to be in Ankara and share the stage and share all the feelings with you. I try to do that a bit like this way.
Thank you.
So let's look into today's talk and then sorry, I have two screens and that seems to be a bit of a challenge for me. Go back to the screen sharing. I should be here and you should be there on the other screen. I just want to see the eyes somehow view, but seems that some sort of well, this is weird now. I cannot see the video on my other screen. Okay, well, that's it. Okay, so let's not waste any more time on that. So I would like to talk today about the DevOps challenges, and especially in 5G in the mobile networks. And that's the topic I'm now focusing on for quite a while. Actually, a year ago, I left Nokia. 1st of October last year, I joined Difficult. So I got already a nice introduction, but you know, as stated, I'm collecting certifications and on top of that, of course, with the intention of collecting knowledge. But what I also do is collecting Legos. Legos because that's a creative way, because you can step away from IT and the laptops, the sitting whole day like that, and do a little bit of more creative thinking. Creativity is extremely important for testers, and creativity is extremely important also in DevOps. So I just love how these things are coming together. As Anna said, I love to be a bridging between different organizations, breaking silos, going from one country to the other, talking on conferences. always connecting people, just like my previous work, Nokia had, connecting people and bringing everybody together. So for me, testing is something which is better done with the crowd, with the team, with a lot of people together sharing ideas and being most creative. So today I would like to focus on a bit of the challenges and opportunities of 5G, like the technology itself. Then we will talk a bit on what is DevOps actually. And then let's merge these, so how 5G and DevOps is connected and why it is different, a DevOps world in 5G. Now also, we are on a testing conference, so let's move into the acceptance testing, the acceptance phase of DevOps, and look at how this is different in actually the agile way, in the 5G way, and in DevOps, how this thing is a bit of difference. Now, because of that different view, I would also like to talk a bit about the topologies, the team topologies that we see beneficial in a 5G DevOps. Now, this is not only for telco. What I will talk about here is when you have multiple suppliers of software and your company more in operating and integrating the things together from these different sources. And with the age of DevOps and continuous deployment, continuous delivery, you will have a lot of incoming software. So how you make sure that the service you integrate and bring together is still working. So even I'm talking about 5G and telco, I very much believe that this will be beneficial for everyone. So first of all, what is 5G? Now 5G is a promise of high speed, low latency, a giant download, and theoretically 10 giga of download speed. I mean, it's beautiful. But does this table actually tell us what is 5G? Can you imagine what this table brings you? So let's look at this. Self-driving autonomous cars communicating together based on the low latency, actually almost directly to each other through the radio tower, not involving the core network, extremely fast communication between cars. Maybe some of the image recognition, AI, as Olivier was referring to as well, is actually running not inside the car, but on a dedicated cloud close to the car. For example, a so-called edge cloud. Now think of that, the edge cloud should not be more than 50 kilometers away from the location where its calculation is used. So if this car is going on a highway from Helsinki to Turku here in Finland, which is 200 kilometers, it should bring its calculation power, edge cloud to edge cloud, at least 4 times. So the calculation should follow the car. That's part of the 5G technology already. Augmented reality. Augmented reality based maintenance. This is from BMW, how they imagine the maintenance of equipment and building together. The customer documentation and the guideline, the guidance is projected by augmented reality glasses. Think of that when you move your head, the picture needs to follow extremely quickly. The calculation needs to be quick, but that calculation probably is not happening within the glasses. It might happen again in the edge cloud. Now, how quick response time do you need from the network that it can, in real time, without causing headache to you, give you the massive amount of data? And of course, 4K, 8K video for both of your eyes. So you see even in 3D. That is the promise of 5G. Industry 4.0, robotic equipments working on their own and communicating with each other extremely quickly. IoT communication, machine-to-machine type communication with, again, low latency, extreme security. That is the promise of 5G. remote surgery. Based on 5G, maybe a doctor in the US is doing a surgery in Turkey, or the other way around. A doctor from Turkey is doing a surgery in the US, maybe a brain surgery or something, through haptic feedback to the hands and immediate feelings of what you do, with all through 5G. So everything is connected. Our city will be full of 5G hosts, and you will have extremely massive and extremely fast, low latency communication, all with the promise of 5G. So this is all 5G. Now, what is behind 5G? Behind 5G, we have a new radio technology, we have a new core technology, there is virtualization, there is cloud, there is edge cloud, there's a lot of new things. So there's a new technology stack. Now, this is a challenge also in 5G. The amount of new technology in 5G is a lot. And this is challenging the communicating service providers, CSPs, a lot. They need to learn a lot of new things. Until now, they might be used to running their own data centers with their own dedicated hardwares, specific hardware for their telco equipments. Of course, the radio is very much hardware-based. You cannot touch too much of that, but trust me, even part of the radio is moving to the cloud. Only the radio head will stay as a hardware, and most of the control function will move into, again, a so-called edge cloud. So cloud is coming, and that's a challenge as well as an opportunity for the 5G LEDs. Why is it an opportunity? Because the whole DevOps mindset requires and can actually be built more on cloud native technology. Now, if you look into the business side of this, to provide 5G, you saw a few examples. Those can be done only together with these business-to-business partners. On one hand, 5G communication service providers already working with a lot of vendors like Nokia, like Ericsson, like Huawei, and other big companies, Cisco and Samsung and Microsoft and others. So everyone is actually providing software already now. And more or less, these companies are going towards agility and frequent software delivery. On the other hand, the communication service providers need to look into business-to-business partnering to come up with new innovative solutions. Now, also the CSPs are focusing on lowering the risk and lowering the cost. Their typical mode of operation and processes are existing to reduce the risk. Now, this is not really helping innovation. When you cannot touch the network for 6 months, you cannot change anything there because it's prohibited, then how can you innovate with the speed of DevOps? How can you change your software, commit the code, and deploy it into production like that? The whole mindset needs to be changed within the communication service providers to be ready to use this opportunity and actually to innovate on top of 5G. Now, also what we see is actually there's a bit of disconnect between the revenue drivers and the investments. So even the business to business is the focus, the investment is still going into the consumer area. Honestly, with the flat rate end user subscriptions, the CSPs will never generate enough income. They just became a pipeline, and that's not what they want. So now we have a bit of understanding of 5G and what are actually the opportunities and challenges that can be addressed by DevOps. Now, what is DevOps? So let's go back a bit to theory, talking about the 3 ways. The 3 ways were defined by Jin Kim in the DevOps handbook, and let me summarize them. So the first way is the principle of flow. The principle of flow from left to right, from development to the operations, actually from business to the customer. It is to deliver ideas as quick as possible, but in a continuous flow. This is lean. This is to go through ideation, idea validation, requirement engineering, development, testing, acceptance, deployment, configuration, deployment into production. All these phases as quick as possible. And again, in a flow. So in a flow, for example, you need to make sure that you have no local optimization. The whole end-to-end capability of the organization is optimized for the flow. The theory of constraint helps you a lot to identify what is problematic area, what is your bottleneck. If you are doing improvement not on your bottleneck, actually you are not improving yourself. That might be just a local optimization. You always need to focus on improving on your bottleneck, on your constraint. Now also, built-in quality is extremely important. You never pass any defect to the next stage in the flow. So all the practices, and for testers as well, being a test consultant or test assistant, quality assistant within the whole flow is extremely important. As Jim King said, being able to take needless work out of the system is more important than being able to put more work into the system. So this is a lean thinking. Removing waste is more important than optimizing the value-added areas. The second way, it's the principle of feedback. The feedback from the customer back to the, from ops back to the development, back to business. It's the constant feedback actually from any stage of work. Fast, visible, reliable, fact-based feedback. For this, you need to be able to measure everything in every location. You need to be able to measure your product, your quality. You need to be able to measure your process quality. You measure your teams. You measure your predictability. You measure everything, actually. So this is, again, the principle of feedback, which is extremely important in DevOps. If you think of the improvement cycle of PDCA, plan, do, check, act, which means that you do some improvement, you check the result, and then you act upon it. So you either change or you improve more on the same. You know if you are going to the right direction or not. So DevOps is actually embedding this PDCA cycle and building on top of that a lot. It's extremely important. Improving daily work is even more important than doing daily work, as said by Jim King. Now, improvement can be done only if you have the visibility, and for that you need to have the feedback. The third principle is the continual learning and experimentation. You need to learn every day. You need to learn about your processes, again, about your product, how it is built, how your organization is behaving. Just think of that. The product that you work on is a system, but also the organization that builds the system is a system. System thinking is extremely important as well here. And with that, you can again learn, you can have end-to-end view, and you can optimize throughout the whole pipeline. Now, experimentation is extremely important as well. How can we know if we are doing the good thing? Now, DevOps, with the capability of deploying things into production, maybe into just for a small user set, that gives you the ability to experiment, to see things, how they work. If we talk about, for example, A/B testing, when you create two different, let's say, user interface, just to refer to Barish's presentation as well, you create two different ways of usability. And then you start to measure, for example, with which one the end users are capable of doing the given task faster, A or B. And actually, even you develop two features, so you would say it's 2 times the cost. But because you don't know upfront which one will work, so you do an A/B testing to figure out which one is working. It's a kind of experimentation. Also, some proof of concepts, some testing, actually shift right testing in production is also fulfilling the need for experimentation and continuous learning. So the 3 ways of DevOps are extremely important. And the third way, again, the principle of continuous learning and experimentation is important, because if you can't out-experiment and beat your competitors in time to market and agility, you are just sunk. Now, we discussed about 5G, right? And we discussed about how that will help communication service providers with new revenue models as well, and how they actually build an ecosystem with the different service providers and actually equipment providers and hardware providers. So let's check still the DevOps view and continue with that thought. So if we put the whole thinking, the left to right value stream, the flow of value, and the continuous experimentation and the feedback cycle, typically we represent DevOps with this infinity loop. Now, this specific one is coming from Tricentis, where continuous testing is extremely highlighted. I like that, but honestly speaking, this is not only where testing is happening. I like this view much better. Because this view, if you look into the build, the blue part, there is no testing at all, right? We code, we merge, we build, and then release. Now, so where is testing? Actually, testing is everywhere. We have testing when we plan the things. You can ask the questions from, business viewpoint, like a business analyst. Is this the right thing to build? Are we building the right system? And you can ask it upfront. And then you can, of course, ask during requirement engineering as well, are we building the system right? Are we fulfilling the requirements? Do we have actually good quality requirements as well? So for example, in Agile, the definition of ready is a quality characteristics to check that your requirements are good enough. So we have then coding, low level, for example, the lint, the code analytics. We have unit testing. We have merging the code. We have continuous integration there with a lot of automatic testing, building, in releasing, deploying, you do a lot of acceptance testing, maybe based on ATDD, maybe based on different techniques. But the point is, and that's again why I love this one, testing is everywhere. Now, coming back to the multi-vendor Telco DevOps challenge. So when the telco providers are working with multiple software providers and suppliers, they might end up in this situation. One provider, let me name it, for example, Nokia, is providing a continuous flow of value already. They might be able to deliver functionality, features, maybe just for testing purposes, maybe already production grade, in every, let's say, 2 weeks. It would be an extremely fast cycle. That might happen. Now there is Ericsson, also capable of doing that. Now there is Huawei, also capable of doing that. There is Samsung. There is Cisco with the networking, with the software-defined networking area. There's a bunch of other areas and suppliers providing software in a continuous integrated, in a continuous cycle every 2 weeks, for example. Now, all of them provide their CI/CD pipeline. What do you think? If you are the communication service provider, is this what you want? Or you would like to go more into this multi-vendor Telco DevOps goal, where the CSP is in the middle, have all the acceptance, operation, monitoring, deployment round in a continuous cycle, while all the suppliers are actually bridged into this CI/CD pipeline. We have been discussing this view with many of our clients in Europe, throughout Europe, and actually this resonates extremely well. This very well captures the problem of the multi-vendor space in DevOps. But as said, this is not only telco. This is actually everywhere where you have a lot of software providers. Now let me open up this pipeline to a little bit more detailed view. But let's start with a simplified view. So in a DevOps pipeline, typically what we have development, plan, code, test, deliver, plan, code, test, deliver, so the cycle, and we deliver time to staging environment, hopefully as frequently as every code commit. And when the staging testing is done, verification is done, built-in quality is assured, then you can go to production. You deploy to production and you monitor the system, how it behaves, how it works, so you can still see everything. So even after deployment, you can see if there is quality degradation and you can react. You can deliver a fast correction, or you can roll back. And you can monitor, as said, for A/B testing or for different purposes to study how your system works. And of course, there is feedback, visibility. Feedback, you remember the second principle. So feedback is implemented, and the cycle of the feedback channel is there. Sorry for my English. So how does it look like if we start to go into the telco world again? So not surprisingly, telcos are typically big, so they have multiple teams even working on the same product. So the development is already pretty big. Many times the product integration might happen in similar, CI/CD pipelines. In separate CI/CD pipelines. But there's typically a team-level pipeline, a team-level CI/CD, and another cycle on higher level when multiple teams are integrating together their code. For example, here we see two products. So maybe the two teams on the left are working on one product, and other three teams working on another product, and here there is a product integration. Code repository we use always because any code that went through the quality assurance stage needs to be stored for version control and being able to use that. So it might be the code, or might be more like the compiled assets. So what happens? Typically we go through having an artifact storage again for the assets, and now we start building the solution. It's a solution integration level. And this is the vendor side, right? So we had teams, we have a product, and the products were building the solution. For example, in the telco world, this could be like voice over LTE, which needs core network, which needs radio network, which needs IMS system, packet core system, HSS, IMR, whatever. I can continue with 3 letters acronyms until the morning. That's the telco world. So what comes next? Of course, we bridge to the telco operator, where typically they also have their laboratory, onboarding, acceptance testing of the new software. Now, remember, we would love to see this is happening every 2 weeks. So vendor is providing software every 2 weeks, and operator with their current legacy manual software processes, they might just stand there and say, I cannot give you feedback fast enough. So there's a need of automation here, and a lot of automated acceptance testing. Now, when the product level is done, and laboratory testing is done, you might go to pre-production environment. This is actually, for example, part of your real network, where you measure on a fewer, for example, radio cells. So for example, just part of a city, how it behaves, and then when it's good, you roll it out to mass production. So we had deploy and measure in pre-production, and then you go to deploy and absolutely fully having the monitoring system, which is up in the operations part of the supplier, sorry, of the communication service provider. Now, of course, the feedback cycle needs to be there, as we discussed. So think of that here we need to have software flow from the vendor to the operator and feedback flow from the operator back to the vendor. The agile teams can work only in the DevOps way of thinking if they continuously receiving this information and get the feedback. So it's extremely important. Now let's spice it up a little bit. What if, as said, the communication service provider is working with multiple vendors? Then we have the left part of the pipeline multiple times. And you need to have the feedback to the right vendor from the right quality characteristics. Now this needs trust. This needs new way of working. But we will check that a bit later. So let's stay on the testing activities. So what kind of testing and quality assurance we need to do on this area and into these stages? So look a bit into this. So in development, of course, one of the most important part, focusing on planning requirement analysis already, is acceptance test driven development, ATDD, or behavior driven development, BDD. Remember, those are actually not testing techniques. Those are requirement specification techniques. Those are specification by example techniques, and it's called driven development, right? Test driven development, meaning actually you first define your acceptance test scenario, agree with everyone, product owner, the team, testers, developers, everyone, and actually that's your specification. It's an extremely reliable way to discuss about concrete things. Now, of course, in the development phase, we also have all the static analysis, code analysis, the lint, and other techniques, as we said. We need to have test-driven development and a very heavy unit testing. Remember the test pyramid, we need to have that, so a lot of unit testing, some and still quite a lot integration testing, and acceptance testing is just the tip of the iceberg. And of course, we need continuous integration techniques. So testers in a DevOps, in an agile teams, are expected to understand all these techniques and be able to help. Now, of course, for product integration, we need a lot of product level deployment automation. So specifically talking about cloud native technologies and containerization, Kubernetes, whatever, we need to have a lot of infrastructure as a code in place. And we need to be able to utilize that. We also need to have the acceptance tests running continuously. So the ATDD, the scenarios that were discussed and agreed together are now becoming test cases continuously executed. For example, with Robot Framework, my company is also part of the Robot Framework Foundation. It's a free open source tool to be used with keyword-driven testing. And it's extremely good for ATDD and also BDD, behavior-driven development. Now, of course, on this stage, you also need to do a lot of non-functional testing. You need to look into your security, your reliability, your performance, your capacity, etc., etc., etc. Of course, this is not the only point when you do non-functional testing. Non-functional testing should spread, shift left as well into development, have a lot of testing that is focused on those areas. Right. Now in solution area, actually, we have the same, but what you need to understand, the solution is like multiple products integrated together. These might come from even multiple vendors, or in my previous workplace as in Nokia, it came like from multiple business units. So some products were done in one continent, other product on the other continent, and solution testing was actually happening in a different way. This area needs solution level deployment, solution level configuration, solution level automation. I still believe there's a lot of reusability in here. Good. Now, on the vendor side, on the telco operator side, we need to redo quite a lot of this. Now, if you have a very strong wall, a big silo in between the two, that means that the vendor needs to reinvent the wheel, recreate all the scripts, recreate all the automation, recreate all the testing, recreate everything. Now that's just wasting the efforts, right? I will show a bit later how this could be combined by collaborating together. Now, pre-production, again, automating the network deployment. So here we might go into very deep down into software-defined networking as well. A lot of infrastructure automation, spinning up OpenStack environments, VMware environments, a lot of other cloud infrastructure as well. As stated, sorry, this is also the place where you do A/B testing and where you can look into how the system behaves. So in pre-production, you can already make this kind of innovation cycles, prototypes, and look proof of concepts, deliver something and see how they behave. Now, I said the last part is production testing. Typically, we do here some canary testing, and continuous monitoring is extremely important. So testers can reuse a lot of the monitoring equipment and monitoring scenarios and ways. This can be monitoring the infrastructure that you have, so like Amazon and OpenStack as said, so built-in monitoring systems, but it can be on your product level. This is like the operation and maintenance level of the product that you use. Good. Now, this for efficiency should be connected with a massive reuse of tools and test assets. I believe in collaboration. I believe that the DevOps pipeline, the DevOps cycle should include both the vendor and the operator. And within that collaborative working model, you need to, and you are able to reuse a lot of scripting, a lot of tools, a lot of test assets. So remember, if your CI/CD pipeline is actually connected to each other, then definitely you utilize the same APIs, and then with that, you can utilize a lot of testing assets. For example, acceptance tests that were used on solution level testing can be transferred with the product together to the operator. So as part of the product, you deliver your acceptance test as well, the test cases and the test keywords. And then you run the same tests there. You might say, okay, why I would use the same test cases that was already used? Of course, you can create new ones, but think of that, you have the keywords available, and then you reuse the keywords to create new tests, additional view from the operator viewpoint. But it's anyway, might be on a different infrastructure, so it's good to be tested again.
Can I just take a little break? That we have this poll question about DevOps.
Yeah.
I want to ask that before your talk is ending, so maybe we can talk about the results together. Is it okay?
Well, I'm happy to answer them after. I have the flow here, so if you don't mind,
okay.
Can we keep it like that?
Yeah, sure. So then we should be like in 2 minutes, the other session will start. So if you can like in summarize or in 5 maybe.
Okay. So that was not 45 minutes then. Okay, then I'll quickly jump. Good. So then to conclude on that, so I said I will talk about collaborative models, and the collaborative topologies are how in a DevOps way of working, you can work together. So how the dev and the ops teams are working together. So now we picked the right bottom corner one from here, which is about the having a DevOps team for collaboration and for connecting. And if we put that on our big pipeline, this would really look like having the vendor as the dev team, the telco as the ops team, and having a support team, the DevOps team, focusing on, doing this asset reuse and collaboration together. And then also these DevOps teams could work together, reusing again a lot of scripting and infrastructure. Now, to have that, you really need to have the cone-shaped skill set. So multi-skilled Agile and DevOps team working together with domain knowledge, with full stack competencies, with automation, a lot of testing competencies. So to summarize quickly up, DevOps is the capability to deliver customer value faster and at a better quality, even in 5G. That's important. We see that the 5G challenges are actually addressed by DevOps, but it needs to be scaled. Continuous release and all that is something special in 5G. You need a special 5G DevOps pipeline for that is spanning across vendor and operator. Tight collaboration is needed. A new organization topology is extremely needed here. And for that, you need to have the comp-shape full stack competency in an Agile team. So actually, that was what I wanted to share. A bit misunderstood my timing limits. Sorry for that. But with that, thank you. And let's see the polls.
No, that was all fine. So we are sending the poll right now. The question is, what is the impact of DevOps in your daily life? Türkçesi de DevOps'un günlük yaşamınızdaki etkisi nedir? There are two things. I only hear DevOps at conferences. It's a fictional subject for me, or DevOps is actively used in our company and we see its great benefits. So let's wait a little bit about this poll, like attendees to participate. What do you think? Most people here in this conference, do you think they are using it regularly, or do you think they are only hearing it more and more? But what do you think?
Well, at least I am hoping that more and more people are actually working in this one. So DevOps, just like cloud native technology and microservices, seems to be just like AI as well, seems to be something on the future, something not for me. But then you realize actually part of your organization is already doing this or using that. So the question is how to scale it. Okay, let's see the results here. I think it's almost half and half. So it's a good thing, I guess. Yes, so most people started to use it. 56% say it's only hearing at conferences. I think this figure looked like a year ago, much more, just hearing on conferences. And I very much hope that in 2 years, it will look absolutely different. But as Agile has been there for quite a long while and still coming up more and more on scale level, I'm supposed that DevOps will also do that. I also want to translate this to Turkish for Turkish attendees. Burada poll sonuçlarında %54'ü DevOps'u, yani sadece konferanslarda görüyoruz. %44'ü gerçekten %56'ya 44 gibi sanırım bir sayı vardı. Gerçekten kullanıyoruz dedi. Kendisi de buna yorum olarak hani giderek arttığını, Agile gibi daha çok kullanılmaya başlandığını, 2 sene sonra bu oranın daha da çıkacağını söyledi.